There isn't enough alcohol to help my mind forget. Heaven knows I've tried it all, but my heart's not ready yet. Where do I go from here, when I've already had the best? I know that you said goodbye, but there's still one question left. Who's gonna love me when you're 3,000 miles away? Who's gonna love me when it's 2 a.m. and I'm wide awake and I need your arms to fall into, but you're nowhere to be found? Who's gonna love me? Who's gonna love me? Who's gonna love me now?
The man, the myth, the legend, Mokita.
How's it going, man? Long time no see.
And excited to have you back, John. It's been like a year and a half, I was counting.
Has it been that long? It's crazy. Time flying.
Yeah, I know, dude. But, man, glad to have you on board again, John, and celebrating the new EP, Who's Gonna Love Me Now,
Yeah.
which is fantastic, Mokita. And, I was listening to Bonnie Raitt this past weekend, and it reminded me that you did that cover of I Can Make You Love Me, right?
That's right. I did that in my parents' basement over COVID.
Over COVID, man. And I think it's such a great rendition, John, because your voice just captures the track and it blends so beautifully. But I find myself really getting moved by it, which is the purpose of music. But is there an artist that continuously just makes you feel emotions, Mokita? Like, like no matter how long time passes, like you hear a song and you just get into the feels.
Yeah, what's really cool is, so one of my favorite artists of all time is Bryan Adams, and there's so many Bryan Adams songs that I love, and I got to see him for the first time in concert, like I want to say it was like 3 weeks ago or something like that, maybe a month ago. And oh man, dude, I'm not gonna lie to you, I cried during a couple songs. I think too, from listening to him for so many years, and as a kid and growing up playing his songs, and then being able to see him like in my 30s for the first time, it was emotional. But that was like a moment of like, man, music is really emotional, because like it didn't even matter what he was singing about. I just felt like, man, music is so cool. I've been listening to this dude for 20 something odd years, and here he is singing right in front of me. But yeah,
I know exactly what you mean, man. I know exactly what you mean. I went, like last year, I went to the Opry. Friend Morgan Wade was performing, and Richard Marx was there, like in the bill. Richard Marx, something random, and he sang, that big song he has, I'll be there for you, whatever that. Now, dude, people lost their bananas, dude.
Oh, I bet.
It was like the Opry was in like on its feet. But yeah, to your point, man.
Music's cool like that, man. Music's cool like that,
man. And John, one of the things I like about you, I mean, many things, of course, but I think you're fearless, like when it comes to covering songs. And we'll get to the new songs in a second, John. But what I mean is, like, you'll go on YouTube, you'll do a cover of like The Police, Every Breath You Take, or whatever. You go from country to rock. You just change the genres left and forth. Like, I would never think Mokita, the same artist who brought us Colorblind, and with you, it just seems like music can just go anywhere. And it's like, I was wondering where that came from. Is it because you grew up here in Nashville, John, that you kind of saw the buskers and what covers can do to people?
Well, I think like, I think growing up and having so many different types of music, because my dad was a pastor, so we grew up, with like gospel music, but then we also grew up with like, my parents listened to like, soul and R&B and country and everything. I mean, there was just so much music around. So I think I've just always had, for me, it's never been like, what's my favorite genre? It's just kind of like, as a kid, you hear a song and you're just like, I like that song. I don't know what genre that is, but I like that. And I think I still feel that way. And I think a lot of it has to do with me being a songwriter and a producer as well. So I work in a lot of different genres. So I think I see myself less of like an artist having this specific sound, more so I feel like I just like creating music that I like, and whatever it sounds like, it sounds like. So I think that's a lot of the reasons why I like so many different types of genres and enjoy putting a spin on a different song. And especially if I listen to a song for a long time and like it, I don't like covering it the same way it's being played, I like to put my spin on it. So, but that's what I feel like I do a lot of times as a producer. You know, somebody brings in a song and they want it produced, and it's like I put my spin on it. And yeah, so
in other words, you start like you reverse engineer it. Like you start at the end, like how do I want to make this song feel? Like how do I want to feel from the other side? And then you take it back.
absolutely. I think so much of what I do is what I always try to do is I want to feel some sort of emotion when I'm creating it. And I never know, it's hard to pinpoint what that is, but if it makes me feel a certain way, and a lot of that feels like this like feeling of like nostalgia, or like that feeling is what I always try to capture, something that makes me feel like a kid when I'm listening to it. And that's what I always try to capture in every song I do, is try to get that feeling of like when I was a kid and listening to music and it made me feel a certain way. That's what I always chase after, is that feeling.
Well, man, you got the magic touch for sure. By the way, Mokita, where are you right now? Are you in Nashville?
I am in Nashville right now. I am. Yep.
Yeah,
I'm in
man,
my studio.
I love it, dude. You look great, by the way. Like, what's your like health? What's your health regime? Like, do you go to like the house gym every day? Like, are you vegan? Like, what is the Mokita like lifestyle, the healthy lifestyle thing?
No, I wear sweat shorts every day, so I don't know. I still have a house. I don't know if they'd have me over there. No, I'm just kidding. Dude, you know, I love staying active. I don't do anything crazy. I eat pretty good. I don't really eat a lot of sweets.
Okay, so you're trying to avoid sugar.
Yeah, and I kind of quit eating sugar like a couple years ago, and then I just don't really crave it anymore. It's really weird. I'll eat I had a cookie last night. So I mean, I'm not like anti-sugar or anything, but I just don't eat it that much. I just feel like the older I've gotten, the better I feel without it. So
Sure.
and then I don't drink that much. I drink a little bit here and there, but I don't drink that much. And then as far as like activities, I like to get outside and sweat. So I heard Matthew McConaughey say one day, because somebody asked him what his workout routine was, and he was like, I don't really have a routine. I just try to get outside and sweat every day. And I feel the same way. I feel like if I can get outside and sweat, or get somewhere and just sweat, whether that be, I like to play tennis.
Okay.
I like to play golf. I like to run a little bit. And then, I also like to lift weights, but I'm not really like, there's never been like, this is what I do every single day. I always just try to stay active, doing something. So
I love it. There you go, man. There you go. Well, thanks for that, dude. By the way, there's a stat I read about you, Mokita, that is unbelievable to me. 400 million cumulative streams on Spotify. 400 million. These numbers
I didn't know that.
Like, yeah, dude, 400 million is what you have. And in my mind, once you start kind of accomplishing these numbers and devotions from listeners, nothing could make you doubt yourself as an artist. But the reality, just, from mutual friends, Mokita, and like Brie Kennedy and stuff, is, you think you're magical, and some days the music is flowing, but there's other days that you think, man, I suck. Like, I'm not good. Like, I'm super mediocre, right? Like, that self-doubt is still there.
Totally. I think one of the best things for me was when I started out, when I moved to Nashville, it was like, I felt like I had to work so hard, and then nothing was happening. And then it felt like after years of work, then things started happening. But I think putting in that time made me realize that I just feel blessed that anything happened at all. So I think a lot of times the self-doubt comes in. I always remind myself, like, in a good way, I don't feel like I belong here. And I mean that in a good way of like, I feel lucky to even be able to do music as a job. So, and I think going through those ups and downs of feeling like really creative, feeling like I've got a lot to say, feeling like everything I'm doing is working. And then the other feeling of like, everything's terrible. I don't feel like I know what I'm doing. I've been through so many of those waves that I feel like I'm comfortable in those now. So when I go through that creative spike, I try to stay on it as long as I can.
Right.
And when I'm on those down things, I'm like, okay, well, you've been here 100 times. So just keep writing. And then sometimes it's like, okay, I'm at such a spot where I just need to take a break for a little bit. And sometimes I hit that. And I think it's just a balance of knowing when to take a break and then when to push through. Because there's been plenty of times where I don't want to work on music, but I'm like, you know what? I feel like I just need to try to push through. I've tried to push through, and then I end up creating something cool. So
yeah,
there's this balance. I think it's just balance. Life is a lot about balance, and so is music and creativity.
Yeah, a lot of self-awareness there, man. That's great. A lot of experience. Love it. By the way, man, I look at you and I think, man, here's a guy just thriving and creating music that's so good. But don't you ever like look around Nashville and Mokita? And because I truly believe what you're doing is part of like an important chapter in music, and people will look back on it like, you know, you're doing stuff with like Charlotte Sands and with our mutual friend Bree Kennedy, and like, don't you think that something is happening here, like Laurel Canyon in the 70s, like, you know, like, I don't know, Greenwich Village in the 60s in New York, like with pop. And I just think that there's something special happening, and you're leading the charge, Mokita, like with alt pop and indie pop here in Nashville. Would you agree?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I guess I never view it that way. I think the thing that I see it as is I see a lot of people that I enjoy working with in this town, and music has kind of come back around, at least what I feel is to more being about the songs. And I think that's what I've always wanted, is to just write a good song. And I think that's one of the reasons that country is so successful, is because everyone's just chasing a great song. And I think that pop a lot of times kind of got more into, well, it has to feel a certain way and it has to be a certain sound. And
Right.
it became less about how good the song was and more just about, does it feel good? Does it commercially work? But yeah, I feel like there's so many writers in town that just want to write a great song, whether that means for country, whether for pop. And so I think that just opens up a lot of doors to just be like, yeah, there's a lot of great writers, a lot of good artists in town. And yeah, it's growing. And I feel that same thing that you're saying. It just feels like there's so many people I work with that I wouldn't even classify them as like a certain genre. It's just that they just want to write great songs. And so that makes for good creativity and good music creation. And then the sound kind of comes later. You might write a song and then you figure out what the sound is down the road.
Man, I love it. I love that whole explanation, you know. And by the way, let's talk about the new songs for a second, because the new EP so great, man. There's like no filler. It's all great stuff. But I mean, Cure is like, I think the first song that like on repeated listens, I'm like, that's a highlight. I love the fact that, you know, talks about the fulfillment beyond just like, you know, the accomplishments. So we just talked the streaming numbers, like what really matters. And you know, you just got engaged, for example. Congratulations, by the way, too. Congratulations, brother. Yeah, man. But like, you know, can you talk to us a little bit about like, you know, what really causes you fulfillment? Is it like a hit song? Like, what causes you the most like spiritual joy now, John?
That's a great question. I think that song is a great kind of culmination of probably the way that my brain thinks every day. And I think music can so often, any job that you have, I think career is such a big part of everyone's life, because, you know, that's what you spend the most time doing. It's like sleeping and career are pretty much the two main things that you're going to spend hours on in your life.
Yeah.
And so I think that song really is just about realizing that, like, I am never going to be fully fulfilled just in my work. It's impossible, because there's going to be days where it feels amazing, but it's unstable. And so, you know, putting your entire identity into something that's unstable is unsafe, because some days you're going to feel like $1 million and some days you're going to feel terrible. So for me, you know, that song is a lot about asking questions, but in my actual personal life, you know, like my faith has been the biggest rock in my life.
Yeah.
So I think, but, you know, at the same time, even though my faith and my has been kind of the rock, there's days where I'm a human. And so there's days where I want my fulfillment out of my work. And if I can't get it out of my work, then I feel like useless, or I feel like I don't know what I'm doing in this world. So I think that song is a lot about that, about where do you find fulfillment and what is worth, you know, putting your investment into, your identity into. So
yeah, man, love that song. By the way, how was the engagement? Like, were you nervous? You know, how was that whole experience?
it was amazing. I surprised she thought I was out of town. So it was a big surprise. I was very nervous. I was excited, nervous.
Yeah.
You know, I don't really get nervous that much. I was far more nervous proposing than I was than I probably would be playing in front of 1,000 people by far. And I think a lot of it was just I was so excited, and I knew she was going to say yes, but I wanted it to be perfect, because it's like, all right, we'll get one shot at this. So, but no, it was amazing. It went great, and we had both her family and my family were in town, and it was amazing. Yeah, we had a great time.
Congratulations, man. Yeah, you look radiant, and the post was beautiful. Man, but let me leave you with one more song. I appreciate your time here in the heat of summer. High, I love High, but you know, And that one is kind of like, that one is the one song I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, that kind of looks back a lot at like your kind of like your past. The others, I feel like, you know, you're kind of like leaning in the future and where you are now. But that one, you talk a little bit about struggles that you've overcome, maybe with addictions and stuff like that. What can you tell us about that song? Like specifically kind of like looking at like what you've overcome, where you are now, and like just writing that song.
I think the main
victory, I guess.
Totally. I think the main point of that song is if you have struggled with things in the past, they don't just go away. Even if you aren't still currently doing those things, you will struggle with those things the rest of your life. And so I think it's more of a in the song, I think it can be a frustration of like, why do I still struggle with these things that I know aren't good for me, that I know aren't healthy? Why do they still entice me? And so I think that's the main point of the song is like, yes, I'd struggled with, you know, drug addiction in my past and alcohol abuse and all these things. And it's like, okay, cool. We've seen the damage that's done. So why do I still want to do these things, even though I know the damage that they cause? So I think that's really what the song is about, is just realizing that is a lie, that those things are going to bring you fulfillment and when really they just bring you pain. So I think it's just more of a journal entry on, you know, these things were a part of my past and I've been doing great, but they still come into play where it's like, they still offer something that sounds enticing, but you know, they're not.
The little devil here.
That's right. Yeah.
Amazing, dude. Well, John, man, love talking to you. You've said it all. What are you doing this summer, dude?
That's a great question. Well, I'm going on vacation for the
first time.
I'm going to Florida. So with my family and my fiance, and so I'm stoked about that.
Okay.
And then just planning the wedding. I mean, I really don't, you know, just writing and producing. I don't really nothing too crazy. So I'll be around.
My brother, it's going to be a bless here for you. And thank you so much for your art. Thank you for your time. It's always great seeing you, dude.
Dude, so good seeing you too, man.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me on.
Take care.
Later, brother.